Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and iOS 27 Beta 5 and iOS 27 Public Beta 3 finally released this week, and surprisingly we also saw Apple release iOS 26.6.1 RC as well. We should finally be on a weekly cycle, and iOS 27 Beta 6 and Public Beta 4 should be coming soon. This has been an odd year for releases, and the latest beta is a bit odd as well. However, Apple is still making good progress on iOS 27, and we're just about a month away from its expected release. In this video, we'll talk about the latest Apple news, many new features, and the overall experience. Not just my experience, but your experience based off the YouTube community poll on the post page, where at the time of this video, there's 13,000 votes and 149 comments. I've gone over all the comments to determine what the update is like for most of us, so be sure to stick around toward the end of the video where I'll read some of your comments as well. The iPhone X is now obsolete according to Apple. As of Thursday, Apple updated their Vintage Obsolete product page to include one of the best iPhones. And on their iPhone product obsolete worldwide page, you'll see if we scroll down, it now lists the iPhone X. So this is one of the best phones that Apple ever made. Many people loved this along with the XS and XS Max, but it's now obsolete. To go along with this, the 2018 MacBook Pro was also added to the obsolete list as well. I'll link this in the description if you want to see all the obsolete products. You can go all the way back and see what they no longer support. Apple has opened a new facility in Houston called the Advanced Manufacturing Center. Apple posted about it on the Apple Newsroom, and also Tim Cook posted about it on X. You'll see it says our Advanced Manufacturing Center in Houston is now open, and we will begin manufacturing Mac Mini this year. So this is great. We're seeing more factories around the world to help diversify it, and of course, that's a new one in Houston. Every year, Apple offers back-to-school discounts for students and educators, and many of those discounts have already been made available in the USA and other countries. You can see it on their education store. You do have to verify that you're an educator or student, but Apple this week has now rolled out the discounts across the UK and 18 European countries. You can now get a gift card up to 120 euros when buying a Mac or iPad, and deals do vary in some countries, but you can see the discounts now in Austria, Belgium, Czechia, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, Hungary, Ireland, Italy, the Netherlands, Norway, Poland, Portugal, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, and Turkey. Those are all available now, but keep in mind that those specific discounts vary depending on the country. Apple Pay looks to be launching in India finally. I talked about this the other day in the What's New in Apple Wallet video in iOS 27, but according to reports from Business Standard, they say Apple Pay should be available in India by October this year. There's also hints that it could be coming to Pakistan as well, and there have been other reports by Bloomberg who earlier this year said Apple was trying to make the service available by the end of the year in India. So as long as the regulatory agencies and local partners approve it, we should see it soon. Now, some time ago, I talked about ads coming to Apple Maps, where Apple has said they're bringing ads when maybe you're searching for something, a local place to eat, or something like that. Different companies could then present their ad as something that was nearby. This is not something that will just pop up everywhere. They're not showing yet, but we do expect them soon, as Apple has recently opened it up for companies to buy ads in Apple Maps. So we'll probably see that very soon with things such as restaurants or points of interest. Apple this week added 19 new movies to watch in Apple TV. If you go to the Apple TV app and you have a subscription, you can then watch those free of charge if you have that subscription. They added them here where it says Great Movies now available on Apple TV. And you'll see things such as Looper, iRobot, The Sixth Sense, The Aviator, and many more, The Martian, and a couple others. So those were just added. Again, there's 19 different ones that you can check out now. When it comes to new features this week, well, the first one has to do with the update page. If we go into settings, then we go to general and software update. You'll see here, if we go into more details, it now tells you when it was installed. Right after you installed it, it told you it was installed that day. Then the following day, it said installed yesterday, and then after that day, it will then just give you the date. So this is something a little bit new, telling us exactly when we installed the last update. When it comes to Apple CarPlay, I'm connected to a CarPlay device here wirelessly, and if we go into settings, there's a change here. If we go down to our wallpaper, we have some new wallpaper, and Apple has actually removed 10 wallpaper. So we have some new ones that you can see here. So if we go in, this is sort of the iOS 27 default wallpaper, and then of course we have a new one for red. It's more of an orange this time around though. We have a blue color that's more of a light blue, and you can see the additional options here. So we only have 9 different ones, and then if we switch to dark mode, they should change as well. So let's switch over to dark mode in appearance, always dark. We'll go back, go into our wallpaper, and you can see the dark mode versions here. So the dark red definitely looks a lot better than it did before. And again, we have typical colors. We have blue, we have more of an orange color, or maybe a tan or brown, and then we have a black color to go along with that. We still can't customize them, but these are all new in iOS 27 Beta 5. As far as other new features, well, there's some new app icons, a couple I didn't mention in the previous update. So if we go into the Wallet app, and within Orders in the Wallet app, this icon is all new for a different box here. Not sure that I like it more, but it is a newly designed icon. Also, if we go into the Control Center and swipe down, we have a new Visual Intelligence Siri icon. So compared to Beta 4 here on the left, Beta 5 on the right, you'll see the icon has been updated with a Siri icon in the middle instead of Apple Intelligence. Also, according to AIrPods on X, the icon for the Safari Technology Preview has been updated as well to match the new Safari icon in Beta 5. Also, he noticed that the Diagnostics icon has been redesigned. So if you're using that with the Diagnostics app, you'll have a slight redesign here. If we go into the Large Reminders widget, you'll see here I have a new list that's auto-subdivided using Apple Intelligence to things such as photography equipment and food and beverages. And so this will now show within the widget. Something less subtle is they've updated Siri to have a little bit more glass here. So on the right is Beta 5, on the left is Beta 4, but the actual animation in the middle is less color saturated. So there's a hint of color, but not as much. Let me know which one you like best. I think I like the one from Beta 4 a little bit better. If we go under Settings and then under Battery and Battery Usage, you'll see here, this is my recent battery usage. We'll talk more about in a little bit, but this can now tell you when poor cellular connectivity is causing battery drain. So I'm not seeing this, but I've seen reports of others having that actually show up, telling them that's why they have poor battery life. If we go into Messages, within Messages, if we tap the plus button, the animation is slightly different. This is very small changes here, but there is a slight difference between the two of them, the way they pop out. Also, if you're using the Home app and maybe you have a bunch of cameras that work with HomeKit, according to Stephen Robles on X, you'll see in Beta 5, the Home app now tells you how many cameras get Apple Intelligence features. So based on the plan that you have, it will then notify you of how many features you'll get depending on the plan you have. If we go into the Contacts app and maybe you have a contact here that's associated with a company or a business where they work, you can now see that without going into the actual contact itself. So for Apple computers, my brother here, and anything else that you might have that's associated with a business. Also within Wallet, if you're going to create a pass, many are seeing this outside the United States right now, so it looks like it's going to be available in more places. If we go into Spotlight Search, it now pops in a little bit different, and you'll see that the actual results seem to be a little bit larger. And if we scroll all the way to the bottom, it now has an option to search the web also. 5G Plus is now showing in Spain, so if you're in Spain, you should see 5G Plus if it's available on your carrier. If we go into our Mail settings and scroll all the way down, you'll see a new option on supported devices for personalized smart replies. This is something that should be working within Mail. However, I'm not seeing it actually show up yet, but it is something that should help when you're replying to someone with a smart reply. Within the code, according to AIrPods iOS 27 Beta 5 gets ready for Apple Intelligence in China. He also found that Apple's working on an Apple Reference Image mode. This could be a new camera feature to maybe authenticate the source of where you're getting your photos from, such as an iPhone. When it comes to app updates this week, WhatsApp recently allowed you to pick a username if you wanted to use that, and they're now allowing you to save that username as a contact. This is according to WA Beta Info. The only other update this week so far is with GarageBand from Apple. So if we go into search here, you'll see GarageBand, where it was updated the other day to fix stability and also has bug fixes. So that's pretty much it. Maybe we'll see some additional updates in the coming week here. When it comes to releases, Apple released a new Safari Technology Preview. You can see that here. So it's version 250 or 250, and it's available for macOS 27 and macOS 26. So you have those as options if you want to check out the latest features. You'll see the old icon is here, but they've updated the new one if you're actually using it on your Mac. When it comes to other releases, well, based on what we've seen already this week with iOS 26.6.1, I would expect that to release to the public as soon as Monday. We could also see iOS 27 Beta 6 and Public Beta 4 on Monday or Tuesday. Hopefully Apple staggers it this time, where maybe they have the public release on the 17th with maybe a beta on the 18th. I do not expect iOS 26.7 betas. We could see those. It would be a bit surprising, but in just a couple weeks, we could also see invites for a fall Apple event. So typically in September, we see a new event from Apple for iPhones and things like that. If we do see that, we should see expected invites going out that week. Then, of course, later in September, Usually the second or third week, we'll typically see iOS 27 released to the public, with macOS 27 Golden Gate and all of the others. And then, of course, we'll move on to iOS 27 Beta 1. So lots of things to look forward to in just a month or so. And speaking of the next iPhone, iPhone 18 Pro and iPhone 18 Pro Max are already being produced, as Apple needs to make millions of them to release to the public, maybe next month or so. And of course, we also expect Apple to release a folding phone in less than a month. Apple is now rumored to launch the folding phone first in the United States and then roll it out over the coming months in other countries. This is according to Channel News in Australia. So based on demand, probably price and things like that, we could see a slow rollout with those, just like the Apple Vision Pro and other products. Now, when it comes to experiences this past week, AirPods Pro 3, of course, did have a beta update and a public beta release, and they've been okay for me, but still had some disconnects on the Mac, but that's using it with a public version. But in general, they seem to work fine with the iPhone. Some people have said they've had interruptions with it or disconnections, but thankfully I haven't seen any of that, and they've been pretty stable. When it comes to the iOS 27 Beta 5 experience, generally it's considered extremely smooth according to most of you and me as well. I've been experiencing the same thing. Many of the micro stutters are gone, going from page to page, things like that. And indexing is generally fast and took just 2 days. After I installed the update, later the following day, it actually finished. So that was great to see. RAM management is generally okay, however, going back into things such as YouTube earlier on, after about an hour it reloaded. That's pretty typical, but many people haven't mentioned RAM management, so that usually means it's doing okay. Also, Siri response times have generally improved, unless it's really searching hard for something in your photos or something like that. What's the weather this weekend? And let's see what it does here. And it was pretty quick. So no issues there. It seems to be much better, but there are still some issues with it, but it's still in beta and Apple's working on it. Also, if you're using AirPods, Siri notifications are working again. That's one thing I didn't mention in the AirPods update, but if maybe you're using your AirPods and those Siri notifications weren't working, they seem to have been repaired in Beta 5. Text glitches that were in previous betas have been resolved, and also there's thermal and battery improvements, but we'll talk more about that later. CarPlay is working much better for me, but not for everyone. I've had no drops so far, but my number one issue when using CarPlay is I can't respond to texts using Siri. It doesn't hear me at all for some reason. It doesn't respond typically. If I want to activate it, it works fine if I press and hold the button, but trying to respond via voice doesn't work at all. Now, when it comes to bugs this time around, the most reported bug is in iMessage, where you have pinned contacts and it cuts them off at the top. Closing and reopening the app seems to fix it for a while. Also, Spotlight Search seems to work okay, but oftentimes the keyboard doesn't show up again for many people. I'm not seeing that, but many people have said they experience it. The same is true when responding to messages and notifications. Again, sometimes the keyboard doesn't work, and I've had quite a few issues with the keyboard when it comes to the iPad. In fact, filling in text fields in particular, or maybe tapping on text fields. So on the iPad, for example, if we go into search here, you'll see I'm tapping it, it's doing nothing. I can scroll, but if I tap on some of these fields, sometimes they do nothing. Sometimes if I go to different options, again, it took a few taps for it to work. So it's a touch issue. It's also a responsiveness issue. Sometimes fields that you would fill in text or search with just don't work at all. So again, you'll see I'm tapping here over and over. I can slide up and down. Maybe I can go here. That one's working. But again, if I go to search, oftentimes it doesn't work. That time it worked. So sometimes when I might type iPad, it would do nothing, and I'm seeing this over and over on many websites. So it's within Safari specifically, though. Other people have complained that their cellular connectivity just completely drops and goes away. Some have even said that it doesn't recognize their SIM. Thankfully, I haven't seen this, but it's working okay for some people, and others it's just unexpectedly dropping, it seems. Also, widgets sometimes are not up to date, so they may not be up to date concurrently with whatever's going on, but it may take a few more minutes for that to work. So there's a few bugs for them to work out here, but again, they keep resolving issues, and we've seen that in the release notes as well. When it comes to iOS 26.6.1 RC, we didn't know it was an RC at first. In fact, at first we thought it was a public release, then no one actually saw it unless you were a beta tester or developer, and then it was confirmed later on a website that it was in fact an RC. But it looks like it's okay for now. We're just not sure why they made it an RC at this point. It does seem to have fixed the shortcut automation issue. So many people were having issues with that within shortcuts. If you're using automations, sometimes it wasn't working on iOS 26.6. This seems to resolve it. It seems to resolve thermal and overheating issues. In general, it's smoother. However, I have seen it stutter from time to time, and there are still CarPlay issues with it with intermittent disconnects. The wallpaper dimming bug does appear to be back for some people though. So if we pull down here, you'll see the wallpaper's nice and vibrant, swipe up, and it desaturates in the clouds this time. So that bug is definitely still here, and unfortunately they haven't fixed it even on iOS 27. They did early on, but now it's returned. When it comes to iOS 18, we did get an iOS 18.7.10 RC. However, I don't know of anyone that installed it as it's only available for the iPhone XR, XS, and XS Max. It does not look like Apple's making it available for any other supported phones with iOS 18. They really want to push you to iOS 26 or iOS 27. So at this point, we're seeing some odd things here with iOS 27, more bugs this time around than we saw previously, but again, they are resolving issues, and maybe that's what took a while for them to release this beta. So hopefully we'll see beta 6 and it resolves many more issues. When it comes to overall heat and thermals, the actual phone itself is a little bit warm from time to time. 26.6.1 is never warm, it's staying nice and cool. The 27 Beta 5 phone here on the right is definitely a little bit warmer, but nothing too hot, nothing abnormal really, but let's go ahead and run benchmarks and see what we get. And then of course we'll check thermals at the same time. Now with iOS 27 Beta 5 on the iPhone 17 Pro Max, at the hottest point we're right around 39 degrees Celsius or so. That's a little bit warmer than last time. With iOS 26.6.1 RC, we're right around 35 degrees Celsius at the hottest point on the 17 Pro Max. So right where we would expect, and let's go ahead and wait for benchmarks to complete and we'll take a look at that. Benchmarks completed, and with iOS 26.6.1 RC, we have 3,224 for single core, 8,880 for multi-core. With iOS 27 Beta 5 on the right here, we have 3,115 for single core, 8,712 for multi-core. So they're both doing quite well. In fact, this is the highest score I've seen with Geekbench 7 on iOS 26 or the 17 Pro Max. So it looks like they're doing quite well. No real issues to complain about here. But when it comes to battery life, let's take a look at that. So thanks to Cameron for sending this in on an iPhone 17 Pro Max running iOS 26.6.1 RC. He had 2 hours and 48 minutes of screen active time, 1 hour and 41 minutes of screen idle time, and used only 30% of his battery. So that's doing quite well. When it comes to iOS 27 Beta 5 or iOS 27 Public Beta 3, they're the same thing. And if we go to battery, I've been using it full time on my 17 Pro Max here. If we go to battery health, I'm at 100% with 161 cycles. If we take a look at battery usage, you'll see yesterday I had 5 hours and 20 minutes of screen active time, 2 hours and 34 minutes of screen idle time, and used 88% of the battery. Today, so far, 3 hours and 3 minutes, using 61%. So this is much better than I was getting with the previous beta. For example, here, 46% usage with just 1 hour and 17 minutes. The following day, 5 hours and 27 minutes charging it twice. So it's actually gotten a lot better. But hopefully it improves over the next few days. And of course, the future betas should focus more on battery life. Now, when it comes to battery life for all of you, 80% of the comments said that iOS 26.6.1 improved battery over 26.6. So there weren't a ton of comments of people using that, but those that did, most of them said it had good battery. Sadly, more are reporting worse battery with iOS 26.6 now, so only 44% are saying battery is good. But with iOS 27 Beta 5, 67% are now saying battery is better than prior betas. This was only 44% with Beta 4, so there's actually quite a big improvement there. If you're wondering if you should install iOS 27 Beta 5 or Public Beta 3, if you're wanting to try and solve an issue, I never recommend installing it. But if maybe you're on iOS 26.6 and you want to try out iOS 26.6.1 RC, that should be the public release. Unless there's additional issues, then we'll see a different build number. At this point, you can try that out, but just be aware that the only way to downgrade is with a computer, and of course, make sure you have a backup. But 27 Beta 4 seemed to be a little bit more stable. Beta 5 is okay. Hopefully Beta 6 is much better. When it comes to overall storage, let's take a look at that. We'll go to General and then iPhone Storage. We'll compare it with 26.6.1 RC. If we scroll down to the bottom, you'll see iOS 27 definitely takes up more storage at 33.53 gigabytes. Apple Intelligence is 17.51, where iOS is 16.02 compared to 14.44. Hopefully they'll maybe work some of this away as it gets closer to a public release, but at this point it's not that huge except for Apple Intelligence. But if you don't have any storage remaining, that would definitely be an issue. When it comes to system data, you'll see I'm almost at 18 gigabytes on 27 beta 5 and only 1 gigabyte on 26.6.1 RC. So that's fine. It goes up and down to about 60 gigabytes and then uses what it needs and comes back down. When it comes to the overall experience and what you have to say, let's take a look at some of your comments. Hacked0813 said, I'm using iOS 26.6.1 RC on my iPhone 17. Occasionally, after waking up in the morning and using my iPhone, I experience some lag when swiping through the home screen. However, the device feels smoother after a while. The battery life on my iPhone is quite good, allowing me to get through the day without any issues. I haven't noticed any bugs so far, so I think this might be the last version of iOS 26. I can't wait for iOS 27. Jay Muez says, I'm using iOS 26.6.1 RC on my iPhone 17 Pro. I haven't experienced any issues at all. In fact, it feels responsive and fast to me. Battery life is the same as on 26.6. Great update, I can definitely recommend it. Flip Finish says, 17 Pro Max Dev Beta 5 here. The 5G battery drain seems to be quite a bit better for me. In fact, overall battery is quite good on this update. So far today, I've got 3 hours 42 minutes of screen time and used 23% of my battery. Got good Geekbench scores too. There is a stutter here and there, but overall a good update. Ginger3843 says, hello, public beta 3 here. Battery life is fine. Overall very stable. However, anytime I exit out of messages, the top 3 pinned messages get clipped and I cannot access them until I scroll up and down, then the clip disappears. Thomas Van Gorkum says, I've been enjoying iOS 27 beta 5 on my iPhone 17 Pro. It's awesome. The battery life is getting better and I'm hoping it keeps improving since I'm heading to the Australian Alps next Monday for a week and really need it to stay steady. Still, it feels solid enough for me to get through the day. iPadOS 26 Beta 5 is great too. CB Castillo 5681 says, I'm on iOS 27 Beta 5 on my iPhone Air and it runs smooth as butter. There's still some little bugs but nothing major. Battery life has been great too. Airport Music said, 26.6.1 seems to have resolved very extreme overheating issues I was having in 26.6 on my 15 Pro. Battery health dropped from 86% pre-26.6 to 84% after running it for just a few weeks. iLorian NN said, the public beta has finally fixed the stuttery home screen issue I was facing. It was likely because I used tinted icons, which is why I have not seen anyone else with this issue before it was fixed. Battery and performance on my 15 Pro Max is still pretty good, as with the previous betas. Scott Hagel 3254 said, iOS 27 Beta 5 is on my iPhone 12 Pro. Of all the iOS 27 betas, this is the one that is causing me issues. I have always had the issues with the Photos app where I cannot reorder the collections since iOS 26 and continuing into iOS 27. The new issue with iOS 27 Beta 5 is the touchscreen is not responsive within the operating system in all my apps. Many times I cannot select something from within an app or the operating system. Hopefully this will be fixed in the next release. When it comes to performance, it seems to be quite smooth overall. Like I mentioned, with 26.6.1 there's a little bit of stutter, but with 27 Beta 5 it's super smooth along with ProMotion. So if we go back here, we'll open and close music quickly. You'll see music and podcasts will go back and forth. You'll see everything's nice and smooth there. If we go into a folder, back out, back into music, you'll see everything's very fast and responsive. If we go into the weather app here, Mercury Weather, go into the default weather app, everything seems to load nice and quick. And when I scroll back to home, just swipe up here, everything seems to be mostly smooth. Not 100% of the time, but much better than we've seen before. So it looks like it's finally resolved. With iOS 18.7.10, of course, there's still holdouts and Apple is still updating it. Unfortunately, they're not pushing additional updates to devices that support iOS 26 anymore, so that only leaves the iPhone XR, XS, and XS Max. Hopefully, they'll push additional updates for those that want to stay on iOS 18, that want stability and battery life and smoothness, and don't really want all of the new features, but just want those security updates. But we'll have to wait and see what they do there. I don't blame you for staying on it, but again, at this point, if there's no security updates, I would recommend updating. When it comes to iOS 26.6.1, this could be the very last update ever for iOS 26. If there's no additional issues, at this point Apple's shifted their focus to iOS 27, so the remaining stutters and everything seem to be resolved with iOS 27. But we could see an additional update before the release of iOS 27 at this point if there are some issues they need to fix still. So at this point, I think Apple's really focused on iOS 27, but finally iOS 26 is fairly decent, but not that great. With iOS 27, it's been odd but good with Beta 5. iOS 27 in general is extremely smooth, apps are opening fast, things are working well, but with Beta 5, it's an odd update as it takes us back a step with additional issues. So those issues I've mentioned with Cellular, issues in messages, random things here and there, but I'm sure they'll get those fixed moving forward as we only have a few more weeks and a few more betas before the public release. So that's everything with iOS 18.7.10, iOS 26.6.1 RC, and iOS 27 Beta 5 and Public Beta 3. I'm really looking forward to iOS 27 Beta 6 and having weekly releases where Apple really progresses quickly moving forward to the public release. Let me know how it's going for you in the comments below, and of course I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.